How's it going, everybody? I'm Lewis, and it appears the 2007scape Reddit has blown up with one huge topic. Essentially, this topic is just discussing the style and quality of Zeah. So, let's get a bit of context here. When Zeah was first released, I think everyone was a little bit disappointed. Of course, we all know that there are 2 more expansions to come. However, that first update felt really hyped, and the content was rather lacking. Since the first update, there has been various ideas floating around, such as cleaning up the coastline of Zeah and organising it just a little bit more. However, these really haven't picked up too much traction until now. On the 2007scape Reddit, a user by the name Gentle Tractor posted an image for how he imagined Zeah, and he posted it under the title Zeah Redesigned. As we can see, it looks much more natural, and arguably much more natural than the mainland itself. It completely changes the square layout that we see in Great Corrend at the moment, and it makes it a much more dynamic area. You can see separation of areas with the introduction of things like city walls and fenced areas, along with plenty of paths and gentle merging of landscape. Despite all these changes, I feel it probably won't actually have too much of an effect of what people do in Corrend, but actually having this improved design and much better integration with the style of RuneScape, it will actually encourage plenty more players to go into Zeah and train and play the game there. One thing that plenty of players say about Zeah at the moment is that really it's too large for what it is. There's not much content there, and really things like quests would help fill it out. In Gentle Tractor's redesign, he's taken a few liberties to create areas which could actually have amazing potential for quests and such. One example in Great Corrend is we can see a derelict manor and play tunnels near the centre of the kingdom. Additionally, Gentle Tractor has actually put a lot of work into a piece of land to the west of Great Corrend, with the ideas the old school RuneScape team have suggested in the past, and some of his own ideas. In this land, there's the kingdom of Varlamore. I'm unsure if this was actually talked about by the old school RuneScape team, but it's got some great ideas in it, such as a large forest called Dryad, and a woodcutting guild. There are also ideas that I know for a fact the old school RuneScape team have mentioned in the past, such as Curlum and the Paradigm of Exodus in the north, Civita Illa Fortis and the Battle Royale arena in the south. Although, interestingly enough, there's no Port Roberts. Perhaps this was overridden by either the Tempest Bay or Port Piscarilius. All in all, I really like this, and I think the old school RuneScape team should invest some time into redesigning Zeah. Perhaps not this exact design, because they should decide where things like banks and such should go. However, the actual layout of the cities and the land should be this. I imagine it would be a large job to do this, especially with the fact they've only got the one artist since Mod Alfred left. However, seeing as they've already got a large amount of models for the current version of Zeah, I don't imagine the modelling and stuff to be too hard, nor do I imagine the coding work from the content team to be too much, because once again, they've got half the stuff from the current version of Zeah. In reality, I imagine this will be more or less just a mapping job. And seeing as they've already got a design for a map here on this image, then they won't have to, try and work out what they're mapping. They're just copying a template. Very easy piece of work, even if it is rather large. When they were first talking about Zeah, I said that it would be good if the design was amazing, and the current design really isn't. In fact, I'm actually one of those annoying little players who haven't actually been to Zeah. Mostly because when I look at it, I can't really see any reason why I'd want to go. Despite the fact that when it was first released, I was actually a little bit hyped and ready to explore, and I even wanted to make things like videos on it. But in the end, it just really didn't seem worth exploring, whereas this redesign, I think, would really be worth it. Even without too much content filling it up, because you can easily see how they could expand and add more content to that land. Whether it's quests, minigames, whatever, we can see the land and we can imagine it because it's so familiar, it's so RuneScape. Compared to what we've got with the current Zeah, it's amazing to think that our current Zeah is just so bad in comparison. There have been plenty of old school RuneScape posts about this redesign now, and a couple have caught my attention. First of all, a post by the user of Rork Tail, showing how plenty of us old school RuneScape players imagine how the next expansions will look on Zeah. Obviously this is incredibly crude, but seeing as the current bit of Zeah is incredibly crude, then it actually fits. And unfortunately, I completely agree, and I don't want this to happen. Similarly, a player called Ed Village posted an image of what he imagined a Slayer dungeon would be like in Zeah, keeping the easy Slayer cave style that we see at the Gnome Stronghold and the square design we see in Zeah. And it's just haunting to think that if that would come into old school RuneScape, we'd have to live with it. And I don't think I could. I mean, obviously you can avoid Zeah, but we really shouldn't be wanting and forcing ourselves to avoid a piece of content that's just badly designed. Of course, on the 2007 Scape Reddit, there has been a few responses from the JMods, the biggest of which was from ModMattK. The TLDR version is basically redesigning Zeah would be a huge job, probably taking between 4 and 6 months to do. They have to decide whether or not this is a good use of their resources, seeing as they really want to reach out to new players. They also want to introduce plenty of new content for current players and keep regular small updates such as quality of life and bug fixes coming into the game, suggesting that redesigning a piece of content that's already in game is a bit of a waste of time because it won't have the same hype as introducing something new. Now, this response has had a bit of a backlash from the community because so many people like this redesign. Personally, I would actually be quite happy if they reduced the amount of updates they were doing for 4 to 6 months. In fact, I probably wouldn't mind it being a little bit more than that, but 4 to 6 months seems somewhat reasonable in order to get this redesign done. It's really a question of quality over quantity here, which is something many players are actually saying in the comments on 2007 Scape's Reddit. Having an update that brings in new players is great, but it's definitely a short-term effect when they see the quality of that update. Having good quality content really keeps players for much longer, meaning the long-term effects are far greater. An extreme example of updates we've had quite a lot of in old school RuneScape compared to this redesign of Zeah could be something like 3 Slayer bosses or a redesign of Zeah, and personally I'd go for that redesign of Zeah. It's much better quality and will encourage many more players to play the game and check out the new area. I mean, like I said before, I've not actually been there, I've not managed to check it out. I would like to, but it really doesn't appeal to me at the moment. This redesign really would appeal to me and I would love to explore it. If the old school RuneScape team are actually that bothered about keeping new updates coming into the game rather than improving the current content, then why don't they just expand their team? This is something rather simple. Plenty of players have actually suggested this, and unfortunately ModMattK actually did address this. He said it'd be hard to persuade his bosses to give them more resources. But, I mean, I really think at this point with old school RuneScape, they need to improve the current content before making more. Plenty of content in the game, especially the old school exclusive stuff, feels rather wrong. Just think of things like Nightmare Zone, Zeah, and the Stronghold Slayer Cave. I'm not saying they should remove this stuff, but it just doesn't really look that good, and if they looked into redesigning it and improving it, it would be so much better. It might be a hard sell for ModMattK to get more team members, but the old school RuneScape community is actually over half the RuneScape community. We must account for a large portion of the Jagex profits. So surely that's a good enough case to make old school RuneScape content decent. And in the end, old school RuneScape is about what the players want, and there's large amounts of support for this. We can see this throughout the entire community at the moment. There's so much more I could say about this topic, but I really want to keep this relatively short and precise. I feel I probably actually ranted on a little bit too much here. Personally, I see this redesign as an amazing idea. I don't think the lack of new content over this time taken to redesign Zeah would take a huge toll on the community. ModMattK said that would lose about 6% of players, but if there's a small drip feed of updates, and the Zeah redesign is as good as this image, then I really don't think any drop will occur, and if it does, it'll bounce right back up. In fact, there's been a straw poll with over 3,750 votes, and that's gotten 96% yes, easily passing an old school RuneScape poll. So it's clear plenty of players are ready to back up this redesign, and I really hope they give us an option for this stuff in the next priority poll. If you haven't seen this redesign image, then please check it out, it's amazing, and let me know what you think about it in the comments below. In fact, whilst I was creating this video, Gentle Tractor has addressed plenty of points that the original post had created, and he's fleshed out this design even further. It's well worth a read, and it shows so many players in the community are on the same page. wanting quality over quantity. However, it feels the old school RuneScape team are actually the opposite. I'll just finish off by saying well done, Gentle Trader. You have really inspired a large portion of the old school RuneScape community, and it's great to see so many people get behind your idea. If you want to watch my video on the latest old school RuneScape news post, please click here for the priority survey and logging competition. And if you want to watch my video on the latest old school RuneScape update, please click here for Deadman changes and implinks. If you've enjoyed this video, please like and share. Specifically, let me know if you've enjoyed the fact that I'm commenting on an idea that the old school RuneScape community have had, rather than just focusing on the updates that we're actually getting in game. If you want to keep up to date with the old school RuneScape updates, dev blogs and polls, please subscribe. I've been Lewis, thanks for watching, goodbye.